The answer isn't just training or just communication. It's really, what are we doing to make sure that this change that we're doing, which is very beneficial, is going to be a smooth change for our members? And what are we doing to make sure that this change is going to be a smooth change for our staff? So yeah, I think that's a smart question to ask for any project.
Hey, thank you for tuning in today. My name's Riley here from the Modern Membership Org podcast. I'm with Bursting Silver, and I am fortunate enough to be joined today by the extremely talented James Harrison. James Harrison is our director of client success. He's got 25 years under his belt in tech, 15 of those in iMIS, and is just a font of knowledge when it comes to this specific topic that we're looking at today, change management. We're going to be talking about the highs and lows and all the in-betweens, and who better to lead us through that path than Mr. Harrison. So I'll hand it over to you, James. Maybe tell our listeners today a little bit about yourself and your background.
Great. Oh, thanks, Riley. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. And certainly with my IMIS background, goes back about 15 years now. And now I'm currently working in sales, but early days, I used to do a lot of implementation work and even working on websites and iParts and things like that. So I've kind of worked my way up. Most of my time working with IMIS, though, was managing clients and projects, a little bit of sales, and then now I've moved into full-time sales, but I've got a good background on managing projects, how those projects go, working on the different modules within iMIS really closely and knowing how each of them works and functions. So it's been quite a great time here in the last 15 years working with iMIS and different clients' projects. Before that, I had my own company and essentially a freelance web design company. I was building websites for artists and small businesses. My big claim to fame is I built Anne Murray's website, if you know the Canadian singer. A few other people too, photographers, fashion designers. Lucienne Matisse was the fashion designer I did. Long story short, I mean, it was fun at the time, but I really saw there's a lot more working with associations, and certainly now you can build those websites easily in Wix and something else. So that was a good move back then, but it was fun in those days. Going back before that, I did work in the restaurant industry. I think I learned a lot working with staff in the restaurant industry. I was managing and working in the front of the house, they call it, and some nice restaurants here in Toronto. So that actually gave me a lot of experience, I think, working with people and working in stressful situations. So I did that while I was in school. But yeah, I stayed a little bit longer because I really enjoyed it. But here we go. That's where I am today.
That is an unappreciated fact. I think everybody needs to put some time in customer service or even the service industry in general. Not only is it humbling, but I think you get a lot of qualities that then translate to the business world that are missed when they're not there.
I absolutely agree with you. And you know what? It's interesting too, because I have people reminding me of that throughout the years after leaving that industry. And I always thought, oh, maybe I spent too much time in there. And then I realized, oh, you know what? It was actually really good that I did. You really learn how to deal with people and high pressure situations. So, especially in fine dining, people are going out for this really important dinner and they're doing it once a year. And if you mess it up, they're going to be really upset and they want it to go perfect. And so there's that stress. On the other side, though, it's a really amazing feeling to be part of special occasions for people. You know, that 30-year anniversary, you can kind of be part of that. So both sides. It's, yeah, really, really humbling is a good word. I like that.
Yeah, nothing more humbling than hospitality. I mean, uh, as we're drawing parallels, a lot of that translates to work you're doing in associations because there's the big wins, the go live, the success, and the happy
Yes.
client, and then there's also the missed expectations or the pitfalls or the oopses that happen along the way.
Yes, absolutely. And I've learned over the years that the the difference is not as different as you think because it comes down to people. And it's really not the technology, but it's the people in behind that technology. And you're working with people when, for example, when we're working with our clients, but clients are working with people when they're working with their members. Um, One analogy I really like, and somebody told me this years ago, or maybe I read it years ago, but if you think back to the days, now we're really going back, but in the old days, you go to the bank and you'd always speak with a teller. Now today we go online, we go and use our app. But the reality is if your experience with a teller was bad or they had a bad attitude, you'd think badly of that bank. If the teller was really happy to see you and really helpful, you would think well of that bank and, I want to go back. Well, that's actually what happens with technology now. So if I have a good experience on one of my clients' websites, I'm going to be happy about it. But if I'm a member and I have a frustrating experience, it's the same as having a rude person speak with me. So I think it's really interesting how technology has sort of taken on, in a sense, away that personality. And in behind the people that are running that association, they've got this sort of wall of tech between them and their members, and their attitude comes through as well too. So everybody's, we can tell when someone's happy to be when a customer is sort of can tell when a company is happy to have them. But I think the technology can help show that yes, we do like having our members, and we can help make sure that happens. And I think there's lots of little parallels there, but it really comes back down to that. Every interaction that is so key, and is important, not just the big ones. And some of that comes back to the restaurant industry as well too. One of the things that I was taught back then was every single interaction is the most important one. Which, you know what, that's true. And I think that if you forget that one page on your website and people keep going back to it and they have a bad experience, that's the thing that they remember. They don't know about all the other things. Or so yeah, I think there's lots of parallels there.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll pull out a couple of those examples here today. But I mean, all of this too, whether we can draw parallels to hospitality or draw parallels to our topic today, change management, there's nuances in technology that from a client relationship as well as expectations to members that the you just need to get it right. You need to make sure that they're well thought out. So
Yeah,
with change management, then when you're looking at that, what
yeah.
does that mean to you, and what do you think leaders or association uh, client staff members, as they're going through this modernization process, get wrong about it?
No, great question. I mean, change management, a lot of people think they know what it means, and I mean that in the nicest kind of way. But they're going to assume that okay, it's just sort of some communications that are going out, or just making sure people are doing training. But it really is that level of project management around a project where you're managing the human side of the change in your organization, and specifically, you're managing the human side on your members' side and on your staff. So sometimes I think we can get caught up in, oh, we'll just make sure the staff have a nice changeover. We do lots of things to make sure the staff are involved. We make sure that they're doing training early on so the system isn't a shock when it goes live. They've had a chance to see it. But we don't give a lot of thought to the members' experience. And maybe for them, there's a whole new system that they've now got to navigate, and they've just received this one email maybe a day before they have to do something important. We didn't give them warning about the fact that the system will be down for a few days. And hey, we all leave things to the last minute. And I thought, oh, I could go on this weekend and sign up for that course. And now I can't. So I think it's really important. We're managing the people, but we're managing both the people inside our organization and outside of our organization. And we're really managing that change for them. And I think it's a way of holding people's hands and walking them through, but also following up and circling back. We can get into the details. Training's a big one. Different communication's a big one. But I think if you kind of have a phrase that encompasses all of that, it really is the project management of the people, managing that change that they're experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you hit a couple beats, but for working with teams and working with people, there's also a matter of um, instilling with or working with one contact as well. You're most often training the trainer that is going to take over a lot of the intellectual property that they're adopting, but you're also you're working with one point of contact who is essentially the leading point for teams. Now, when it comes to that leader relationship, if you've identified one individual as your point of contact, how would you say that relationship usually works when you're dealing with people along the way?
So I think what you might be picking at there is sort of that one person on the inside who's a team lead or a champion that we often can call them, say, an iMIS champion, right? So if you have somebody on the inside who's first of all just really excited about the project, that's super helpful because their attitude will just sort of lead on to the others, and also the other way around. If you have someone who's very negative about the project, that attitude will spread as well too. So I think it is really important when you're managing a large project, and especially if it's a move to a new system, that you pick a couple of key people on the inside who are both positive and eager to work on the project. They're excited about the project. They're excited about the technology, and also too, other people listen to those people, or they don't necessarily have to be leaders, but they're able to influence other people in a way where. Okay, yeah. You know what? Hey, John likes to go and try new things out, and I always kind of like to check in on him and see what he's doing. That sort of thing. They just they like people, and other people get along with them. Now, it's not always easy to find that person, but they do often put their hand up kind of early on in the project. If you kind of get yourself in a situation where you have a number of staff within the client's team. For example, we have discovery sessions in the beginning. Usually, you can find the person who's kind of eager to participate, and you can add to that. Those people do like being involved in the project. So I think finding those people early is really key, and giving them the ability to have some influence on the project, so their participation is valued to you. They'll feel valued. But in addition to that, too, they can kind of be a little bit of a front runner or a frontier for the others, where they can report back about things. They have a chance to look at things a little bit early, and you want them kind of communicating those positive things back. So yeah, I would say it's almost critical to find at least one key person on the client side who has those traits, and also signal out anybody who's negative to make sure you kind of make sure they don't have too much influence as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's uh, keeping all of those stakeholders essentially feeling heard, whether it's from your own champion, and they're able to feel that internal communication, because they're going to hear it regardless when that go live happens. They've now run off with their system. They're going to be in charge, and if they're not addressing those points, I think that's a really good callback to say that even the defectors, or the people that feel like they are really being threatened by this new change, are also being addressed. Do you have any examples, not to call it any specifics,
Yeah.
but on that note, where you have some people that are really not for a project, and are making that known, or not feeling heard?
I definitely have examples of both. Both key people that were very positive and key, and had them sort of take that spot where they're doing the training and learning and passing that on to others, and you can see it. It's obvious. The other way around, though, sometimes it's more of a, oh, you're stuck with somebody, or they're stuck with a certain job that they didn't necessarily want within the project, and they don't have a positive attitude around it. So there's kind of two different ways where you have that experience. One can be you have these what they call business process review meetings often, or discovery sessions. But in general, what it is you kind of take each department, you'll have staff from their department. That'll be their only participation is that day until we get into closer to training and go live, right? And so it's easy to kind of manage somebody who's negative within that context because they're just there for the few hours, let's say. But if someone's been assigned to managing for their department this part of the project and they have a bad attitude, and they're kind of feeling like, oh, I'm stuck working on this project when I have other things to do, or they're not positive about it, you definitely want to address that right away. And a lot of the time, it is a matter of listening to their concerns and addressing them and turning them around, uh, and also helping them see the perspective of this system where they can gain, their staff are going to gain. And a lot of the time, I haven't found any yet where you can't end up turning their position around by having some discussions with them, really listening to what their concerns are and answering those concerns, and reflecting back to them as well too the decisions that other departments and other people have made and the reason they've made those. And often too, that one person might feel like, yeah, this is a bit hard on my department. Oh, but now that I know that it's really benefiting that other department who's actually been having a much harder time, they're all of a sudden going to change their attitude and be more positive around it. So those are some of the things that I've had happen and techniques I've used. And yeah, definitely very important. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think investigating a little bit further too, to figure out what that pushback is about, you find new opportunities that maybe weren't considered. Have you have you found any times in your experience where you turn that negative into a positive, and it really steers the ship in another direction?
Absolutely, and actually, you end up finding this buried issue that basically wasn't part of the RFP or wasn't part of the original scope, but maybe this person's been kind of guarding it, let's say, or you get to the bottom of their complaints and their concerns, and you realize that, oh, okay, hold on, they're doing something in a really inefficient way. There's a much better way to do that with the new system. So yes, I've certainly had that experience where, and I think it's taking time to get to know the different people that you're going to be working with during this implementation, and really reaching out to them getting their feedback on what they think about the system. And then if they have something negative, dig a little bit further and find out why. Because if you just kind of ignore that negative note, then you never end up uncovering the why behind that. And then often that's where the new opportunities are. And you might even realize there's a lot of energy being spent on what management thought would be a good idea, but they're ignoring actually an improvement that's more critical to the staff, which would be better to address with iMIS and the new software that's being implemented for them. So yeah, there's a lot of value there to talk to those frontline people. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's all part of trusting the process as well.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
change management is built on a system of processes. So maybe a good example here then when we're talking about those wins, to polarize that or look at the other way,
Yeah.
um, where where are times that you have seen this maybe go off the rails, or some examples of maybe what felt like a win actually didn't turn out that way?
You know what? It's so interesting because I think we all have that one bad experience that then taught us to not just not repeat that, but actually was the reason that we've actually perfected a certain area or skill that we have. And I think that would be the case for certainly with me with change management. And you get used to things after a while. You kind of get, it's easy to overlook, or you feel like, oh, we've done this kind of a project before, and it's this one seems the same, and you sort of feel like, okay, everything must be going well, and because it seems like it is. And then we're going to go on to the next thing. And I had a project that involved basically, it was a new client onto iMIS. There was about 15 of their staff. We were going through the project and the project timeline right on time. It seemed like every meeting we were having, they were pretty happy with things. And then there was some feedback and that would be expected, but no real gotchas or red flags. And it felt like, okay, this is, they're getting the system, they like it. And let's just continue on with our schedule. And when we came to the QA portion, so this is where we really need the staff's involvement again. And actually we're doing our, so what I recommend is we always do training first, then QA. So everyone's learning or refreshing even some learning. Then they're testing the system out for 3 or 4 weeks before they go live. And when you go live, it's not the first time they've seen the system. Well, this group of staff actually panicked when we got into QA because that's when we started to find out that they were actually overwhelmed with the new system. And the meetings we were having during our sprints, they were very much like, it's almost like watching a TV show. It's very distant, okay, this is that. This looks neat. Looks like it's gonna be fun. But then finally you ask them to kind of, okay, now it's your turn to get in the driver's seat. There was just a lot of anxiety on their side, and they really didn't feel like they were ready. And they didn't also feel like they could test and sign off on these things being done. So we actually brought in an additional consultant who was an expert in this area and managing people and change management specifically, who then came in and we redid the timeline for go live. We added in a lot of additional steps to make sure that all these different staff members had the time and training that they needed. And in addition to, we had a system where each team had a point person who was then able to direct the other team members and was in charge in signing off. So, kind of George, the user, didn't feel like, oh, I don't want to be the person to say this looks okay. That's too much responsibility for me. So we made it so that the heads of each department had that responsibility. We gave them that extra training that they needed. And you know what? It was one of the most successful go lives we had after that. And they were okay with us changing the timeline. They saw that we were responding to their anxiety. We could have said, "Hey, let's just, you know what, the train's leaving at 4 o'clock. Let's keep on going." And I think that would have been not a good go live at all. But whereas by changing the schedule, listening to them, I think it was very very important. But for me, the lesson learned was, okay, don't assume things are going well. Really check and poke. And if people are nodding during sprint meetings, maybe double check. So yeah, that was that was a good example there.
Yeah, I'm sure I've been guilty going through training videos, being like, "Yeah, I totally get this." Then jump in, it's all Greek. So can only
Oh,
imagine. That's
absolutely. It's very human. Yeah.
it's like that bike ride too, and you're finally going on your two wheels. The parent lets go, and you think that's it. You start going for the curb. At least I know I did.
Oh, I definitely did. Oh yeah, I had some bruised knees, and it is different watching someone do something and then doing it yourself. Completely different. And one thing that I have learned, I think too, over the years with different projects is and it's a good analogy is not jumping in the deep end in a pool in one big splash. but actually slowly walking in and going from the shallow end. And most people say, oh, like it's the water's too cold and you're going to torture yourself going in step by step. Well, in this scenario, it's actually better to do it step by step, and just kind of slowly walk in from the shallow end. And all the incremental changes are just a little bit more than what you knew last week instead of a big change all of a sudden. So yeah, and the earlier you can get staff who are the users involved, the better. Even just them having some input on things. If you get their input early on and they're a bit of a detractor, well, they're at least they're going to feel listened to. And then when it comes time for them to do training, they're not going to feel like, oh, well, I don't like this new system. I don't care. They don't care what I think. You've actually asked them their opinion early on. They've been involved in some of those steps. So now they're going to take the training seriously and they're going to be involved. So I think really, yeah, keep making sure the staff are on board and addressing any concerns around that if they're not with the new project, with the timing. Sometimes staff, it's not that they do or don't like the new system, but they feel like, oh, well, why are we going live during our annual renewal or during our big conference, right? So they'll feel like it's their department maybe is being affected and the other departments don't care. And so really got to manage all those little pieces. And if now they know that, oh, well, we're picking this go live date because of other reasons, and we've really got to pick, but hey, why don't we help your department out a little bit more by doing X? And that's really, I think change management comes down to that. It really is helping each of those departments, and then also to your members, not to forget about them as well too. But really listening and paying attention, I think, is key. Yeah.
Yeah, and with that testing comes practice, and with that practice, you also have the chance to ask questions. I think before it's good to go.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because I think we're all very similar. If we have a flight coming up, some people will pack a week before, and some people will be like, "Oh, well, I got a couple more hours before I have to leave. I don't need to start packing yet." Right. So I think it is good to find ways to make sure everyone participates. I do like the idea of training before QA, and you start that 6 weeks before you go live. So even people that aren't necessarily too involved with the project earlier on, they know that, hey, this training is coming up. And one of the nice things, for example, the iMIS Training Learning Hub, you can now, as one of the staff who are in charge at an association, you can track and monitor your staff using that system and they're learning. So have they been finishing their courses, for example? But I think one of the things that really is good is to hold people accountable and say, okay, you've got to do one course a week. And once they realize early on, oh, they're checking, they're following up, they do that 1 or 2 courses a week. You get into the testing, you give them testing to do. They've got 4 weeks to do it, but check in every week to make sure they're getting it done. And again, it's that kind of that slow walking into the shallow end rather than, oh, they're going to cram and leave it to the last minute. And they said everything's fine, but they haven't actually been doing their work. So I think following up with staff can be really good. And back on the other side too, making sure your members know about these changes that are coming up. So I really like early on, once we get started with our project, what's our plan of communication for the members? So, for example, oh, sure, we're going to go live in October. Oh, yeah, that's months away. It's just March now. But hey, maybe we should put out some communications, for example, in July. Maybe we should put some notifications on the website. You really don't want your members to all of a sudden get this shock and the surprise that, oh, the website's not available or, there's been a change and I'm not expecting it. So I think that's an important thing to do is when are we going to start letting our members know about these changes coming up? Some clients will say, well, we don't want to tell them anything until we know the go live date, which is fair. But I think you do want to at least come up with what's the plan? How many emails are we going to send? How many posts on the website are we going to send? Are we going to talk about it at our conference? We had one client whose go live actually involved launching their new website, which was iMIS and system at their conference. So that worked out well because all the people at the conference were now able to see this new launch and unveil while they were there, and they were part of the excitement, and they were really excited about all the new features and what they were launching. So they actually did that on purpose, and they didn't want to say anything beforehand, and they wanted to make it a reveal. So they found out at the conference, but actually it was still, for example, a month away or a little longer before the launch happened. So yeah, I think keeping your members engaged, but also too, we were talking about somebody who's a keener or somebody who could be an iMIS champion, let's say on the inside. Look for those people too on the outside in your members. There's always members that participate a little bit more and seem to just be a little bit more active or interested. Sometimes they'll volunteer for things. Those can be really good people to have come in and do early testing or be part of a pilot. and actually take advantage of that so they can come in and let you know what things look like from the members' perspective early on before you launch, and can help you find if there's issues. So do look for those champions even within your members as well. Yeah.
Very wise words. I still got sweaty palms when you were talking about packing late for a flight. But I mean, calling back to another episode, I was talking to Al about maintaining relevance. One thing too about maintaining that relevance is involving your members. If they have the opportunity to uh, rubber stamp or give their shot at the new website or give their feedback, I think
Yeah.
that's huge because then now they have just a deeper connection with the going ons, and if they had some really strong opinions about how your website was working in the past and now they can be involved, I think that's a huge opportunity.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. And you'd be amazed actually how many members will be not just interested, but sort of feel chuffed that, hey, oh, they asked me. And they want to give feedback. So if they've been a member of an association for 10 years and that association has really helped them with their profession, and they have an opportunity to give back in a different way where they're actually a beta tester or somebody you're letting on the system a little bit early and doing pilot testing, you'd be amazed how many members would be actually quite stoked and excited to do that. So sometimes it's a matter of finding them. But yeah, I think those can be key people. You can even let them in a little bit early on some of your ideas and things you were looking to do, get their feedback. When you launch, they can be a very key person, certainly with testing, where, oh, you know what, we missed something. They're going to be a little more resilient if they find something rather than somebody who's a member that's maybe not as involved and again, running behind schedule, just wants it to work. They don't want to find an error. So yeah, you definitely, I think you can use those people actually to your advantage a lot more, and they also feel good about it too. You could even give them a discount at an upcoming event, or give back to them somehow and say, hey, if you want to participate, we'll give you, this. iMIS has the new promotion codes, and you can say, hey, at the conference, you can use this promotion code, get 20% off. So yeah, you don't want to feel like you're taking up too much of their time without giving them something. There's lots of ways to compensate them as well. Yeah, but
Yeah,
very key.
everybody likes that early access,
Oh
exclusive.
yeah, I'm like, ooh,
Walk around like Wayne's World with my press badge.
yes.
Well, so I mean, like I said, I preface it here, your font of knowledge, but based on your experience now, because we deal with so many different organization types, sizes,
Yeah.
shapes, um, where would you see change management applying to between associations, regulatory bodies, colleges, unions? Do you see it pretty much the same? Or is it pretty equal across the board and it treats no one differently, or is it there are nuances to it?
Well, there's nuance for sure to the different verticals, but I would say that it's very important for each of those verticals to have change management. Just like it's very important to have project management, it's very important to have testing. You don't want to have a project go live without having some change management that you apply to it. So I think it's an easy one to kind of forget because it sounds a little bit like project management. So you're just assuming it's in there. But I think with the different verticals, there's going to be some nuances that are different. Unions will be maybe a lot different. For example, from associations, if it comes down to a certain time of year, if there's certain strike actions or things happening, or maybe when the system, when they're going to use it, or if they're in general maybe more resistant to change or than others are excited. There might be different ways that you want to invoke that. But I think it's still important. It doesn't matter which vertical. And I think the most important thing is are we taking time to think about the experience that they're having and to make sure we're walking them nicely towards the new system and taking their concerns in mind. So I think both for your staff and your members, that's really, really important. And then the answers for your particular vertical or your association, you'll find those as soon as you're asking those questions, you'll find the right way to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, let's put my executive director cap on here. I'm a association leader. We're a year out from a major change, and I'm now starting to think about all the thing that's happening. If you were
Yeah.
approached by me, the executive leader, and I had one thing that I need to put on my Monday morning to do list, what would that be? It's something to start considering for a major change here.
You know what? That's a great question. And actually, my answer to that would be to make sure, and this is a little bit away from change management, but it is involved in it because I would say to make sure that all of your processes are documented. And you might not know what those processes are, sorry. But actually, it's really, really key at this point in time when you're changing from one system to another that you don't have some processes that are locked inside of some of your staff's heads and they're the only ones who know about it. You want to make sure that everything's documented and it's understood the way we do things. Not, oh, Charlie knows how to do things or Becky knows how to do things and go check with her. I think making sure all your processes are documented is really, really important. And then when you're looking at all those processes, you can better evaluate as well too, how is changing this system going to affect our users and it's going to affect our staff and then help manage them. But without that written down first, you kind of really don't know the change management you're trying to manage around what exactly. So the what is your processes, and I would say that would be the most key thing is for an ED to look at a new project with a new system. If we don't have those things written down, is there a step within the process that our staff are going to write those processes down? They're going to be well documented, so everyone's aware on both sides. On our side, the implementation team, but also on their side, the staff to know exactly, oh, yeah, this is the way we're going to do it. And this is how we're doing our process in the new system. So, yeah, I think that would be key. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to know where you want to go is to first know where you are.
Yes, I like that. I think there's a book I read when I was younger along those lines,
Yeah, I
actually.
was just going to take credit for that myself, but
Uh,
all right. Well,
uh,
we'll try and get that quote in the show notes.
Perfect.
Well, James, it's been absolutely lovely having you on the podcast here. Thank you so much for your wisdom and everything that you bring to modernizing organizations. Is there anything pertaining to this topic that you think we may have left out, like a gem that you would hand off to our listeners here who've been on?
Oh wow, that one little gotcha, that one little piece of wisdom. You know what? I think we really kind of covered everything, but I think the most important thing would be, what are you doing for change management in your project? And if you don't have an answer for that, then I think you should go and find that answer. The answer isn't just training or just communication. It's really, what are we doing to make sure that this change that we're doing, which is very beneficial, is going to be a smooth change for our members, and what are we doing to make sure that this change is going to be a smooth change for our staff? So yeah, I think that's a smart question to ask for any project.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, James. You take her easy, and we'll catch you on another episode, I'm sure.
Thanks, Riley. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed the show. Talk to you soon. Enjoy your day.
Yeah. All right, that was James Harrison talking about change management. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this content here, please feel free to leave us a like or subscribe, do any of that stuff. And if there's some topics you want us to cover, reach out anytime. info@burstingsilver.com. We'll catch you at the next episode.